Most people spend their entire lives working hard, staying busy, and following instructions, yet never understanding why success feels distant, inconsistent, or fragile. They assume successful people are smarter, luckier, or somehow chosen. But that assumption is exactly what keeps success out of reach. What successful people understand is not secret knowledge reserved for a few. It is simple, fundamental, and quietly ignored. And once it is understood, life never looks the same again. This audiobook is not about motivation. It is about orientation, how the mind is positioned in relation to life. Earl Nightingale often emphasized that success is not a destination, but the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Most people hear that and nod. Successful people live it. Across these 9 sessions, you will not be taught tricks or shortcuts. You will be guided into understanding the internal laws that govern results. Laws that operate whether you believe in them or not. Laws that reward clarity and punish confusion impartially. Most people never fail because they lack effort. They fail because they misunderstand cause and effect. They work on the surface of life instead of at the level where outcomes are created. Listen carefully, not to agree, not to argue, but to notice what resonates as already true. And now we begin. Session 1. The first thing successful people understand, often without being able to articulate it, is that life moves in the direction of dominant thinking. Not occasional thoughts, not hopeful wishes, but the thoughts that occupy the mind most consistently and emotionally. Most people believe circumstances shape thinking. Successful people understand the opposite. Thinking shapes circumstances. This does not mean positive thinking in a shallow sense. It means intentional thinking, directed attention, conscious choice of inner focus. The average person allows the mind to drift. They react to news, people, problems, moods, and fears. Their thoughts are largely recycled from yesterday, shaped by environment and habit. As a result, their outcomes are recycled too. Successful people do not leave their inner world unmanaged. They understand that the mind is a tool, and like any tool, it must be used deliberately. When left unattended, it defaults to fear, scarcity, and distraction. When directed, it becomes creative, focused, and productive. Earl Nightingale often said that we become what we think about most of the time. This is not philosophy. It is observable reality. Your actions follow your thoughts. Your habits follow your actions. Your results follow your habits. Most people never trace results back far enough to see the origin. Successful people do. They recognize that complaining, worrying, and drifting are not harmless. They are rehearsals. Each repetition strengthens a mental pattern. Over time, those patterns harden into expectations. Expectations quietly guide behavior. Behavior produces predictable results. This is why 2 people can be in the same environment with completely different outcomes. The difference is not opportunity, it is interpretation. Successful people also understand that clarity beats intensity. You do not need to think harder, you need to think cleaner. Scattered thought produces scattered effort. Focused thought produces momentum. They choose a direction and return to it repeatedly, even when emotion fluctuates, even when results are delayed, even when doubt appears. Most people quit mentally long before they quit physically. Successful people persist inwardly first. They also understand that thought must be paired with purpose. Thinking alone is not enough. The mind needs a worthy aim. Without it, thought drifts. With it, thought organizes itself. This is why successful people define goals that are personally meaningful. Not goals borrowed from society. Not goals rooted in comparison, but goals aligned with their values and interests. The moment a goal feels meaningful, the mind begins to cooperate instead of resist. Most people never experience this cooperation because they live reactively. They respond to pressure instead of vision. They move away from pain instead of toward purpose. Successful people reverse that orientation. They are not driven by fear of failure. They are guided by clarity of direction. This session plants the foundation for everything that follows. Until thinking becomes intentional, nothing else matters. Skills, opportunities, and effort cannot compensate for unmanaged thought. In the next session, you will discover why success is an inside job first, and why most people try to change their world without ever changing their inner orientation. Successful people understand something that most never fully accept. The outer world is a reflection, not a cause. This single realization quietly separates those who struggle from those who grow steadily, regardless of circumstances. Most people wake up each day reacting. They react to bills, to people's opinions, to the economy, to their past mistakes, to the mood they happen to be in. They believe their environment determines their state of mind. When things go well, they feel confident. When things go poorly, they feel discouraged. Their inner world rises and falls with outer events. Successful people reverse this relationship. They understand that their inner world is the cause, and the outer world is the effect. Not immediately, not magically, but inevitably. This understanding changes how they experience problems. When something goes wrong, they do not see it as proof of failure or lack. They see it as feedback, information, a signal pointing to an adjustment that needs to be made internally. Clarity, discipline, focus, patience, or direction. Most people personalize failure. Successful people analyze it. Earl Nightingale emphasized that success is not something you chase. It is something you attract by the person you become. That idea sounds simple, but it requires a radical shift in responsibility. It means you stop waiting for permission, perfect timing, or external validation. You accept that your results are connected to your inner posture toward life. This is uncomfortable for many people because it removes excuses, but it is also empowering because it restores control. Successful people do not deny reality. They acknowledge facts without emotionally surrendering to them. They understand that emotions are responses, not commands. Feeling discouraged does not mean you must stop. Feeling uncertain does not mean you must retreat. They act from principles, not moods. Most people act from emotion. When motivation is high, they move. When it drops, they stall. Their progress is inconsistent because their inner state is unmanaged. Successful people train themselves to act in alignment with intention, even when emotion fluctuates. They do not wait to feel ready. They move first, knowing that clarity and confidence often follow action, not precede it. Another key difference lies in how they view time. Most people think short-term. They judge success by immediate results. If effort does not pay off quickly, they assume something is wrong. They change direction constantly, chasing fast relief instead of long-term growth. Successful people understand the time delay. They know that causes precede effects, sometimes by weeks, months, or years. This patience gives them an advantage. While others quit, they continue. While others complain, they refine. They are willing to look foolish temporarily for long-term gain. The world then responds differently to them. Not because the world changed, but because they did. Most people wait for confidence before acting. Successful people act until confidence catches up. They also understand that responsibility is freedom. Taking ownership of results, thoughts, and actions gives them leverage. Complaining removes leverage. Blame removes leverage. Victimhood removes leverage. When something fails, they ask, "What can I control?" and focus there. This session is about reclaiming authorship over your life. Not through force, but through awareness. When you stop fighting circumstances and start shaping your inner orientation, effort becomes more effective and less exhausting. In the next session, you will explore why drifting is the greatest enemy of success and how most people unknowingly surrender their lives to it. One of the greatest differences between successful people and everyone else is something so subtle that most never notice it, yet so powerful that it quietly determines the entire direction of a life. Earl Nightingale called it drifting, the habit of allowing life to happen instead of deciding how it will be lived. Most people drift. They wake up, respond to whatever is urgent, do what is expected, and repeat the pattern day after day. They are busy, but not directed, active, but not intentional. Years pass. and they wonder how time slipped away without producing the life they once imagined. Successful people recognize drifting as dangerous, not because it feels bad, but because it feels comfortable. Drifting requires no decisions, no responsibility, no clarity. It allows a person to remain occupied while avoiding commitment. The mind loves drifting because it avoids tension, but growth requires tension, the healthy kind that comes from choosing a direction and holding it. Drifting shows up in subtle ways. Saying, "I'll figure it out later," waiting for motivation, blaming lack of time, jumping from one idea to another without depth, consuming information endlessly without applying it, staying in situations that feel familiar even when they are unfulfilling. Most people do not consciously choose drifting. It happens when purpose is unclear. When there is no defined aim, the mind defaults to habit and environment. The person becomes a product of routine instead of a creator of direction. Successful people refuse this passivity. They understand that clarity is not something that magically appears, it is something you decide. You may refine it later, but you must choose a direction now. A flawed plan is more powerful than no plan, because movement creates feedback, and feedback creates improvement. They do not wait to feel certain. They understand that certainty is a byproduct of commitment, not a prerequisite for it. Another critical distinction is how successful people handle distraction. Most people believe distraction comes from external sources: phones, media, noise, other people. Successful people know distraction is internal. It is the mind's resistance to focus. When focus is weak, the mind looks for escape. When purpose is strong, distraction loses its grip. Successful people train attention the way athletes train muscles. They deliberately return their focus to what matters again and again without frustration. They understand that mastery is not never losing focus. It is regaining it quickly. They also understand that indecision is a decision. Every time you postpone a choice, you choose stagnation. Every time you avoid clarity, you reinforce drifting. This is why successful people make decisions faster. Not reckless decisions, but committed ones. They are willing to adjust later, but they do not remain stuck in endless consideration. Motion reveals information that thinking alone never will. Earl Nightingale warned that drifting eventually hardens into resignation. People stop expecting improvement. They begin managing disappointment instead of pursuing growth. This is not because they lack ability, it is because they lack direction. Successful people protect their sense of expectancy. They expect their efforts to matter. They expect progress to come from consistency. They expect learning to produce growth. This expectancy fuels perseverance during periods when results are invisible. Most people abandon efforts during the invisible phase. Successful people understand that every worthwhile pursuit has one. They also recognize that environment reinforces drifting or direction. They are selective about what they consume: ideas, conversations, media, and influences. Not because they fear opposing views, but because they understand repetition shapes belief. What you hear daily becomes what you accept. What you accept becomes how you live. This session is not about pressure or perfection. It is about reclaiming intention, about stepping out of unconscious living and into deliberate direction. You do not need to control everything. You need to choose one thing and commit to moving toward it consistently. In the next session, you will understand why discipline is not willpower and why successful people rely on systems instead of motivation. Most people believe discipline is something you either have or you don't. They see disciplined individuals as unusually strong, highly motivated, or naturally focused. Successful people understand something very different. Discipline is not force. It is structure. This misunderstanding alone keeps millions of people stuck in cycles of starting and stopping. They wait to feel motivated. They rely on emotion to carry them forward. And when that emotion fades, as it always does, they assume something is wrong with them. Successful people know better. They understand that motivation is unreliable, temporary, and reactive. Discipline, on the other hand, is quiet, predictable, and built into the environment and routine. It does not depend on how you feel. It depends on how you've designed your life. Most people attempt to change behavior without changing structure. They set goals but leave their environment untouched. They promise themselves consistency while remaining surrounded by distractions, interruptions, and habits that pull them in the opposite direction. Successful people reverse this approach. They design systems that make the right actions easier and the wrong actions harder. They reduce friction for productive behavior and increase friction for unproductive behavior. They do not depend on constant self-control. They conserve it. For example, instead of trying to be more focused, they create specific times and spaces for deep work. Instead of relying on inspiration to learn, they schedule learning as a non-negotiable part of their routine. Instead of hoping they'll make better decisions under pressure, they decide in advance. This is why their progress appears effortless from the outside. In reality, the effort was invested up front, in planning, organizing, and committing. Earl Nightingale emphasized that success is the result of daily habits repeated consistently over time. The problem is that most people underestimate the power of small actions. They look for dramatic breakthroughs instead of quiet accumulation. Successful people understand that small actions compound. They do not dismiss what seems insignificant. They know that reading a few pages daily, refining a skill a little each day, or improving a process slightly over time creates momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. Another crucial insight is that discipline is not about controlling every moment. It is about choosing your priorities. Successful people say no often. They protect their time and energy because they understand that attention is finite. Most people confuse busyness with progress. Successful people measure progress by alignment with goals, not by activity level. They also forgive themselves quickly when they fall short. This is important. Most people respond to failure with self-criticism, which leads to avoidance and quitting. Successful people respond with correction. They ask, what broke down in the system, instead of what's wrong with me? This keeps them moving forward without emotional baggage. Discipline, in its highest form, is self-respect in action. It is the decision to honor future outcomes over present impulses. It is not rigid, it is intelligent. This session invites you to stop fighting yourself and start designing your life in a way that supports who you intend to become. In the next session, you will discover why successful people think in terms of value, not money, and how this single shift changes everything. Most people believe money is the primary measure of success. They chase it directly, worry about it constantly, and structure their lives around its absence or pursuit. Successful people understand a deeper principle. Money is never the target. It is the byproduct. This is one of the most misunderstood ideas in success philosophy, and Earl Nightingale spoke about it repeatedly. Money flows toward value. It always has, and it always will. When you focus on money first, your thinking narrows. When you focus on value, opportunity expands. Most people ask, how can I make more money? Successful people ask, how can I become more valuable? That single question changes everything. Value is not about working harder or longer. It is about solving problems, improving systems, and contributing something that others find useful. The marketplace does not reward effort. It rewards results. It does not pay for time. It pays for impact. This is why two people can work the same number of hours and earn radically different incomes. The difference is not effort. It is the level of value being exchanged. Successful people understand this early. They invest in skills that are in demand. They refine their abilities continually. They learn how their work affects others and how to improve that effect. Most people remain focused on tasks. Successful people focus on outcomes. They ask, what result does this produce, rather than how busy am I? They seek leverage, ways to produce greater results with the same or less effort through learning, systems, and innovation. Another important distinction is how successful people view compensation. Most people believe they are paid according to how hard they try or how loyal they are. Successful people know they are paid according to how difficult they are to replace. This understanding shifts behavior immediately. Instead of waiting for recognition, they build rare skills. Instead of complaining about pay, they increase competence. Instead of feeling trapped, they create options. They also understand that value compounds. Knowledge builds on knowledge. Skills stack. Relationships deepen. Reputation strengthens. Each layer multiplies the next. Most people never experience this compounding effect because they jump from one direction to another, never staying long enough to build depth. Successful people commit to mastery. They choose a field, a craft, or a problem space and stay with it long enough to understand it deeply. Over time, this depth creates insight, and insight creates value that cannot be easily replicated. Successful people also understand that value is contextual. What is valuable in one environment may be irrelevant in another. This is why they stay aware of trends, changes, and needs. They adapt without losing their core strengths. They do not cling to outdated methods simply because they are familiar. They evolve. Another critical insight is that value is amplified by communication. You may have skill, but if you cannot articulate it, demonstrate it, or position it, its impact remains limited. Successful people learn how to communicate clearly and persuasively, not to manipulate, but to connect. They understand that clarity creates trust, and trust increases opportunity. Most people underestimate how much opportunity comes through relationships. Successful people invest in relationships by being reliable, respectful, and helpful. They understand that trust compounds just like skill. This session reframes success from something you chase to something you build. When you focus on becoming useful, capable, and reliable, money follows naturally. When you chase money without value, frustration follows just as naturally. In the next session, you will learn why successful people master themselves before they attempt to master the world, and how emotional control becomes a decisive advantage. One of the most profound things successful people understand, yet rarely say out loud, is that self-mastery precedes everything else. Before influence, before leadership, before wealth, before recognition, there must be control of the inner world. Without it, even success becomes unstable. Most people spend their lives trying to manage circumstances. They try to control outcomes, people, timing, and results. Successful people understand that this approach is backwards. The only thing truly within your control is your response, your thoughts, emotions, focus, and behavior. Master those, and circumstances begin to lose their power over you. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about understanding it. Most people are ruled by emotional impulses. When they feel confident, they act. When they feel discouraged, they retreat. When they feel uncertain, they procrastinate. Their progress rises and falls with their moods. Over time, this creates inconsistency, and inconsistency destroys momentum. Successful people do not eliminate emotion. They regulate it. They understand that emotions are signals, not commands. Fear does not mean stop. Doubt does not mean turn back. Discomfort does not mean something is wrong. Often, it means growth is happening. This understanding alone gives them an advantage. While others avoid discomfort, successful people learn to operate inside it. They stay calm under pressure. They think clearly when stakes are high. They do not panic when outcomes are delayed. Earl Nightingale often emphasized that success requires the ability to delay gratification. This is not about denial. It is about perspective. Successful people are willing to endure short-term discomfort for long-term reward. Most people sacrifice long-term outcomes for short-term relief. This difference shows up everywhere. In learning, successful people persist when material feels difficult. In business, they stay committed during slow periods. In personal growth, they continue refining themselves even when no one is watching. They do not need constant validation. Their motivation is internal. Another critical aspect of self-mastery is attention control. Most people allow their attention to be hijacked constantly by news, notifications, other people's opinions, and internal chatter. Their minds are fragmented, making deep work nearly impossible. Successful people guard their attention fiercely. They understand that what you give attention to grows. Repeated attention strengthens thought patterns, emotional responses, and habits. Another critical aspect of self-mastery is attention control. Most people allow their attention to be hijacked constantly by news, notifications, other people's opinions, and internal chatter. Their minds are fragmented, making deep work nearly impossible. Successful people guard their attention fiercely. They understand that what you give attention to grows. Repeated attention strengthens thought patterns, emotional responses, and habits. By choosing what they focus on, they shape their inner landscape deliberately. They also understand the importance of emotional neutrality. They do not overreact to success or failure. Praise does not inflate them. Criticism does not crush them. This stability allows consistent decision-making. Most people ride emotional highs and lows. Successful people aim for steadiness. This does not mean they lack passion. It means their passion is disciplined. They do not burn out because they do not live in extremes. They pace themselves. Self-mastery also includes self-honesty. Successful people are willing to see their weaknesses clearly without self-condemnation. They do not defend flaws or hide from them. They address them. This honesty allows growth. Most people avoid this because it is uncomfortable. They rationalize. They justify. They blame circumstances. Successful people take responsibility without self-punishment. They ask, what can I improve, instead of who is at fault? This shift keeps them adaptable. Another powerful element is patience with process. Successful people trust that consistency will produce results, even when evidence is delayed. They understand that growth often feels slow because it is happening beneath the surface. Roots grow before branches. This patience allows them to stay engaged without frustration. By mastering their inner world, successful people create stability that external success can rest on. Without this foundation, success collapses under pressure. With it, success becomes sustainable. In the next session, you will discover why successful people think long-term in a world addicted to immediacy, and how this perspective multiplies results over time. Successful people understand something that runs completely against modern culture. The future is built slowly, not instantly. In a world conditioned to expect immediate results, quick rewards, and constant stimulation, this understanding alone creates a massive advantage. Most people live in the short term. They evaluate decisions based on how they feel now, what they gain now, and how quickly something pays off. When results take time, they lose interest. When effort is not rewarded immediately, they assume it is wasted. Successful people see time differently. They think in terms of seasons rather than moments. They understand that every meaningful outcome requires a period of preparation, a period of effort, and a period of waiting. They are comfortable operating in all three phases without emotional panic. This long-term orientation shapes how they work, learn, invest, and build relationships. They are willing to plant seeds they may not harvest immediately. They read books whose value compounds over years. They develop skills that may take time to monetize. They nurture relationships without expecting instant return. Most people want proof before commitment. Successful people commit before proof. This does not mean blind faith. It means understanding cause and effect. If the inputs are consistent and intelligent, the outputs will arrive. Time is not the enemy. It is the multiplier. Earl Nightingale often spoke about success as a process rather than an event. This idea is easy to agree with but difficult to live by. Living it requires emotional maturity, the ability to remain steady when nothing appears to be happening. Most people quit in the silent phase. Successful people stay. They also understand that compounding works in every area of life, not just money. Small improvements in thinking, habits, and skills accumulate quietly. At first, the progress is invisible. It becomes noticeable. Eventually, it becomes undeniable. This is why success often looks sudden from the outside. In reality, it is the result of long-term consistency. Another important difference is how successful people handle boredom. Most people interpret boredom as a signal to quit or seek novelty. Successful people understand that boredom often appears right before mastery. Repetition is not glamorous, but it is necessary. They stay with routines long enough to extract value from them. They also understand that time reveals character. Over long periods, discipline compounds, and inconsistency exposes itself. You cannot fake consistency over years. Eventually, habits show up as results. This awareness keeps successful people honest with themselves. They focus less on appearances and more on alignment. They ask, if I continue this way for 5 years, where will I end up? That question guides their daily choices. Most people never ask it. Long-term thinking also affects how successful people handle setbacks. They do not interpret setbacks as endings. They see them as part of the curve. A temporary dip does not change the direction if the system is sound. This perspective prevents emotional overreaction. While others abandon plans at the first sign of difficulty, successful people adjust and continue. They understand that resilience is not dramatic, it is quiet persistence. They also know that urgency is often the enemy of quality. Rushing leads to mistakes, shortcuts, and burnout. Long-term thinkers favor depth over speed. They would rather do fewer things well than many things poorly. This restraint pays off. Most people overestimate what they can do in a month and underestimate what they can do in a decade. Successful people reverse that error. They stay patient in the short term and ambitious in the long term. This session is an invitation to step out of the tyranny of immediacy, to stop measuring progress emotionally and start measuring it structurally, to trust the power of consistent, aligned effort over time. In the next session, you will discover why successful people think independently and how mental independence protects them from the most common traps. One of the rarest qualities among successful people is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It is independent thinking. Earl, Nightingale emphasized this repeatedly because without independent thought, no amount of effort can produce lasting success. A person who does not think for themselves will always be working towards someone else's vision. Most people believe they are thinking independently, but in reality, their thoughts are inherited. They absorb opinions from family, culture, media, and social circles without ever questioning them. Over time, these borrowed beliefs harden into truth, and behavior follows automatically. Successful people interrupt this process. They question assumptions. They ask why things are done a certain way. They notice when an idea is popular but unexamined. This does not make them rebellious. It makes them deliberate. Most people seek approval. Successful people seek accuracy. They're not driven by the need to fit in. They're driven by the need to understand. This often means standing apart. Thinking differently is uncomfortable at first because it challenges belonging. But successful people understand that conformity is far more expensive in the long run. Independent thinking does not mean rejecting all advice. It means filtering it. Successful people listen carefully, but they decide consciously. They weigh ideas against principles instead of popularity. This is why they are not easily shaken by trends or opinions. They have an internal compass. Another critical element is the ability to think in first principles. Rather than copying surface-level strategies, successful people break problems down to fundamentals. They ask, what actually causes this, and what truly matters here? Most people imitate outcomes. Successful people understand systems. Imitation can produce short-term results, but it rarely leads to mastery. Understanding principles allows adaptation. When circumstances change, those who rely on borrowed methods panic. Those who understand fundamentals adjust. Independent thinkers also resist emotional contagion. They do not absorb fear simply because it is widespread. They do not adopt pessimism because it is fashionable. They examine data, context, and incentives before forming conclusions. This emotional independence protects clarity. Earl Nightingale warned that most people live in a state of hypnotic rhythm. repeating the same thoughts, actions, and reactions without awareness. Independent thinking breaks that rhythm. It introduces choice where there was once habit. Successful people are acutely aware of what they consume mentally. They understand that constant exposure to negativity, distraction, and shallow thinking dulls insight. They curate their inputs intentionally: books, conversations, environments. They do not outsource their thinking to algorithms or crowds. Another powerful aspect of independent thinking is the ability to change one's mind. Most people cling to beliefs because they identify with them. Successful people identify with truth, not ego. When new information emerges, they update. This flexibility keeps them ahead. They also understand that thinking is a skill, not a personality trait. It improves with practice. They spend time alone with ideas. They reflect. They write. They examine outcomes and ask what caused them. Most people fill silence with noise. Successful people use silence to think. Independent thinking also affects decision-making speed. While most people hesitate because they are waiting for consensus, successful people decide based on principle and move forward. They accept responsibility for outcomes rather than hiding behind group approval. This responsibility sharpens judgment over time. Session 8 reveals why so few people ever build extraordinary lives. Not because they cannot, but because they never step outside inherited thinking. The moment you begin questioning assumptions, you reclaim authorship over your direction. In the final session, everything will come together. You will understand how successful people integrate thought, discipline, value, self-mastery, time, and independence into a single way of living. What truly separates successful people from the majority is not merely independent thinking, but the courage to sustain it over time. Many people have moments of insight. Few have the discipline to live by those insights when they are inconvenient, unpopular, or uncomfortable. Successful people do. Most people borrow their worldview unconsciously. They inherit beliefs about money, work, risk, intelligence, and success long before they ever question them. By the time adulthood arrives, these beliefs feel like facts. They operate beneath awareness, silently shaping decisions. Successful people slow this process down. They notice patterns in their own thinking. They catch themselves repeating ideas they never examined. They ask, is this actually true? Or have I simply heard it often? This alone frees them from invisible limitations. The average person confuses familiarity with truth. Successful people do not. They understand that the mind seeks certainty, not accuracy. It prefers ideas that feel safe over ideas that are correct. Independent thinkers override this instinct. They tolerate uncertainty long enough to reach deeper understanding. This tolerance is rare. Independent thinking also requires emotional maturity. When you think differently, you'll be misunderstood. You may be criticized. You may be ignored. Successful people expect this and do not personalize it. They understand that disagreement is not rejection, is simply difference. Most people abandon their own judgment the moment they feel social pressure. Successful people remain steady. They also understand that the crowd is often late. By the time an idea becomes widely accepted, the greatest opportunities connected to it are usually gone. This is why independent thinkers are often early, and early often looks wrong. History proves this repeatedly. Innovations are resisted before they are celebrated. New ideas are mocked before they are normalized. Successful people are willing to endure the early phase without validation. Another key distinction is how successful people think about problems. Most people react emotionally to problems. They label them as setbacks, unfairness, or proof of failure. Independent thinkers analyze problems structurally. They ask what variables are involved, what can be adjusted, and what can be learned. Emotion clouds judgment. Structure clarifies it. Because of this, successful people are calmer under uncertainty. They are not immune to stress, but they are less reactive. They do not assume the worst. They suspend judgment long enough to gather understanding. Independent thinking also shows up in how they evaluate success itself. Most people adopt society's definition without question, status, possessions, approval. Successful people define success internally. They decide what matters before pursuing it. This protects them from chasing goals that look impressive but feel empty. They understand that alignment produces energy while imitation drains it. When your goals are borrowed, motivation feels forced. When goals are self-chosen, effort feels meaningful. Another rarely discussed aspect of independent thinking is the ability to think in layers. Successful people do not stop at surface explanations. They look for underlying causes. If a strategy fails, they do not abandon the goal. They examine the assumptions behind a strategy. They separate principles from methods. Methods change. Principles endure. This is why successful people can pivot without panic. They are not attached to a single path. They are committed to an outcome guided by understanding. Independent thinkers also understand the danger of constant consumption. Most people consume information endlessly and mistake it for thinking. Successful people know the difference. Thinking requires digestion, not accumulation. They create space to reflect. They revisit ideas. They test them in real life. They refine their understanding through experience, not theory alone. This is why their insights feel grounded rather than abstract. Perhaps most importantly, successful people understand that independent thinking is not about being right. It is about being responsible. When you think for yourself, you own the consequences. There is no one to blame. This responsibility sharpens decision-making. Most people avoid independent thought because they fear responsibility. Successful people embrace it because it gives them control. This session is not an encouragement to rebel against the world, but an invitation to reclaim authorship over your mind, to stop outsourcing judgment, to stop living on borrowed conclusions. When you think independently, you stop reacting to life and start shaping it. In the final session, you will see how all these understandings converge into a single, quiet truth that governs success itself, and why those who grasp it never return to drifting again. At this point, what successful people understand is no longer fragmented into separate ideas. It forms a single, integrated way of living. Thought, discipline, value, self-mastery, time, and independent thinking are not individual tools to be used occasionally. They are a posture toward life. This is the understanding most never reach. Most people collect information. Successful people integrate understanding. They do not switch mindsets depending on circumstances. They do not behave one way when things are easy and another when things are difficult. Their inner orientation remains stable. This stability is what makes success repeatable rather than accidental. Earl Nightingale often reminded us that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. The word progressive matters. Successful people are not obsessed with arrival. They are committed to alignment. They measure success by direction, not speed. Most people wait for certainty before moving forward. Successful people move forward to gain certainty. They understand that clarity is earned through action, not contemplation alone. Every step reveals the next. This is why they appear confident. Confidence is not personality. It is familiarity with uncertainty. They have learned that uncertainty is not danger. It is the space where growth happens. By facing it repeatedly, they build trust in their ability to respond. Over time, fear loses authority. Another deep understanding is that success is internal consistency made visible. When thoughts align with values, actions align with intention, and effort aligns with direction, results follow naturally. There is no internal conflict draining energy. Most people live divided lives. They think one way, act another, and hope for a third outcome. Successful people reduce this division. They simplify. They also understand that success is not linear. There are periods of acceleration and periods of consolidation. They do not panic during plateaus. They recognize them as necessary integration phases where learning settles. This patience preserves momentum. Successful people also understand the danger of ego. Ego seeks recognition, comparison, and validation. It turns progress into performance. It creates pressure. It distorts judgment. Successful people keep ego in check by focusing on process rather than applause. They know that attention can be as distracting as criticism. Another essential insight is that success requires renewal. Rest is not laziness. It is maintenance. Successful people protect their energy. They do not confuse exhaustion with dedication. They understand that clarity requires recovery. This is why they build sustainable lives instead of burning themselves out. They also understand that success does not make you immune to doubt or fear. It makes you familiar with them. Doubt becomes a signal to refined thinking, not a reason to stop. Fear becomes information, not authority. Perhaps the most important realization is this: success is not rare because it is difficult. It is rare because it requires awareness. It requires noticing what most ignore, choosing what most avoid, sustaining what most abandon. This is not about superiority. It is about responsibility. Successful people take responsibility for their thinking, their direction, and their development. They stop waiting for permission. They stop blaming conditions. They stop drifting. They choose deliberately. This session completes the picture. Success is not something you pursue aggressively. It is something you allow by removing confusion, resistance, and inconsistency. Once this understanding settles, striving relaxes, effort becomes focused, progress becomes steady. And at that point, success is no longer something you chase. It is something you grow into. As this audiobook comes to an end, it's important to understand that nothing you've heard was meant to impress you. It was meant to orient you. Success is not a mystery hidden from most people. It is a pattern quietly available to anyone willing to see clearly and live deliberately. What successful people understand is not complicated, but it is demanding. It asks for awareness instead of drift, responsibility instead of blame, direction instead of distraction, patience instead of urgency. Most people never fail because they are incapable. They fail because they never decide. They never choose a worthy aim and align their thinking, habits, and identity around it long enough for results to form. You now understand that success begins in thought, stabilizes through discipline, grows through value, and becomes sustainable through self-mastery. You understand that time is not the enemy, distraction is. You understand that independent thinking is not rebellion. It is authorship. These are not ideas to admire. They are principles to live by. You do not need to change everything at once. You need to change direction and remain consistent. Small, intelligent actions repeated daily will quietly transform your life in ways that dramatic effort never could. Remember this: success is not a prize given to the lucky. It is the natural outcome of alignment. If at any point you feel lost, return to the fundamentals. Ask yourself what you're thinking about most. Ask whether your actions match your intentions. Ask whether you are drifting or directing. The answers will always tell you what to do next. Carry this understanding with you, not as pressure, but as clarity. Let it simplify your decisions. Let it steady your effort. Let it remind you that you are not behind. You are simply becoming aware. And once awareness takes root, progress becomes inevitable.